TikTok is single-handedly responsible for the overconsumption crisis and feeling like we are in a constant state of scarcity by pushing and rewarding creators to sell products. I say single-handedly because though other platforms maybe do contribute in their own way, like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Marketplace, whatever, it is certainly not to the extent of TikTok. TikTok truly does reward its creators in a very unique way. Today I want to talk about how TikTok has contributed to the overconsumption crisis and market psychology as to why we blindly follow these trends, even though I think on some level we have to understand that they are completely stupid and useless. I cannot even conceive why somebody would want a Labubu, let alone a $60 Stanley water bottle. And I hope to normalize actual normal behavior. So if you're feeling FOMO for not being able to participate in some of the TikTok trends, know that you are not alone. This is very abnormal and unhealthy behavior if you are buying into these trends. If you're new here, my name is Ruth Jones and I talk about everything finance, media, and productivity. So that's your jam, hit subscribe and let's get into it. Begin with the rise of the TikTok haul videos. Haul videos are by no means new. They started around 2010s on YouTube. I'm sure you can remember the beauty and fashion influencers of 2010 that literally built their careers off selling things to people. However, even though it was prevalent at that time, it by no means had the same effect that TikTok does today. I think the largest reason that overconsumption really took off on TikTok was because of the switch from long form to short form videos. Unlike on YouTube, when hauls were typically about 10 to even 20 minutes long, when it switched over to TikTok, they became short, fast, and truly addictive. And instead of just showing one haul every single month, the creators that were getting rewarded on TikTok for showing this ended up producing multiple haul videos per week. Further, on TikTok, people started to identify with the commodities being sold. Instead of actually just selling a makeup product, you're now selling an aesthetic. I feel like the most obvious of these aesthetics are the multiple makeup trends that go on TikTok. For example, the clean girl aesthetic, the mob wife aesthetic, the cold girl aesthetic. There's just so many different aesthetics that I can't even keep track of, and they're all very unique to TikTok. All of these trends involve makeup. For some reason, every single trend necessitates to have its own specific products for that trend. Like, you couldn't possibly reuse your mob wife makeup for your clean girl makeup because those are two separate, completely different worlds, and those are two different products. In reality, most women just stick to the same shades or makeup products that they use every single day. So to have this plethora of products is really unnecessary. Hauls now became a way to signal identity. You're not just buying makeup, you are a clean girl by buying into this clean girl aesthetic. I actually think the name of this aesthetic was so incredibly pernicious because if you aren't a clean girl, that means you're a dirty girl. And of course, nobody wants to actually be a dirty girl. You're more likely to buy into that product because you don't want to have the negative identity associated with that. It's such a nitpicky little small thing, but I really do wonder if that subconsciously has made people buy into the aesthetic. And not to mention, in 2022 to 2023, TikTok fully implemented their TikTok shop, which essentially turns haul videos into a direct funnel for spending. And though this is not so dissimilar from having the products listed in a YouTube description, for example, because of the short-term content on TikTok, it really did change the game in terms of overconsumption. And in fact, it incentivized content buying. The more a creator shows, the more they sell, the more commission they earn. And as we all know, TikTok's algorithm pushes very short, engaging, and visually stimulating content, which haul videos typically are. Haul videos actually have very high engagement. Oftentimes people will comment like, oh, where is this from? Which in turn signals to the algorithm that that video should be pushed more. All of this together have created a feedback loop. A creator buys, makes hauls, gets videos, makes money, buys more. Because trends come and go on TikTok so fast, it actually creates a sense of urgency for buyers to participate in these trends. If the buyers wait even 2 months, the trend will be over and they would have missed out completely. I think you could find evidence on this for just about everything on TikTok. But a really good example is just like seasonal clothes. Something that was really popular this year were these shell dresses. I can almost guarantee you nobody's going to be wearing them next year. In fact, I guarantee people are going to think they are cringe worthy. Buyers would have gotten about 2 months use out of it before throwing it out. The psychology of why we buy something is very multifaceted. So I'm only going to be covering some elements that I think are the most obvious on TikTok. Starting with number one, I think this is most pernicious, and that is just social comparison and FOMO. On TikTok, you're seeing not only what your peers are posting, but you're also seeing what influencers are posting that, first of all, they have probably 10 times the amount of annual income, and they probably got those products for free. But regardless, your brain actually does not register that. The only thing that you are thinking in the moment is that they have something that you do not. And when the exact same product is being pushed over and over and over again, you can't help but feel like you're missing out. That coupled with limited time or influencer discounts really does contribute to wanting to buy something now because there's the illusion that it's cheaper. So maybe you cave and you actually buy the product, but your hit of dopamine after buying the product is almost completely dissipated once you've received it. Dopamine is actually an anticipatory hormone, meaning you get the highest sense of dopamine when you are anticipating something, but once you actually receive it, you get almost no dopamine at all. When you spend $60 on your Stanley Cup, when you actually receive it, you get little to no satisfaction. By not getting any dopamine once you've received that product, it actually creates a feedback loop where you are wanting to constantly chase the high of dopamine, which makes you primed and ready to go back on TikTok and see the next item that is now being pushed pushed on you that you suddenly need, and now that your brain is chasing that dopamine, you are more likely to purchase. Not only that, there are so many influencers on TikTok that just say financial bullshit. For example, the whole quote of, I can get my money back, but I'll never be 20 in the Maldives. That is genuinely very bad financial advice, and I know they're trying to be cute and quirky, but what they're actually doing is normalizing this idea of buy now, worry later. When you see so many people liking that content and comments of other people just like you that are engaging with that content and saying similar sentiments, that really does normalize very bad financial habits that you will need to break. This next topic is really what I think separates TikTok from any other platform when it comes to overconsumption, and that is how TikTok builds a community on consumption. TikTok is a very unique parasocial relationship in which influencers can sell these products, but then also the audience engages with those products and with themselves. Contributed to multiple communities being brought up on TikTok. So now it's not about just consumerism, it's about being part of a community. In other words, consumerism has become a part of self-identity. This is true for I think just about every single trend on TikTok, but I think the biggest right now is the Pilates girl aesthetic. If you don't know, Pilates is essentially a type of low intensity workout. However, TikTok has rebranded it into an aesthetic entirely devoid of working out. In fact, I very seldom seeing these Pilates girls actually do Pilates. So it's not about the workout, it's about the image attached to Pilates. And if you want to join the Pilates community, you have to have the quintessential Pilates uniform. That is, of course, matching neutral or pastel sets, Lululemon obviously, Stanley cups, glass water bottles, minimalist tote bags, ballet flats, and a slick back bun. And if you think for a second that you can show up to your Pilates reformer class in your Pavo oversized sweatshirt, think again. You seldom see these people actually working out. It is completely about the aesthetic. If anything, the workout is optional. It has become a marker of who you are. Calm, disciplined, put together, feminine. Not only that, but these trends have overlapped. Somehow the Pilates girl, the clean girls, this ultra mega high society rich girl aesthetic have just freaking combined and made this huge mega aesthetic for which you cannot be part of unless you buy it. If you're unaware, the Pilates classes themselves are very expensive. I believe they're $60 per class, which is insane for a 1 hour minimal workout. But that is part of the branding. High society exclusive workouts that you can only participate in if you buy in. So now let's get into the ramifications of this overconsumption. Most obviously, there's a financial impact on your wallet. And what's worse, the whole buy now, pay later aspect that has really promulgated on TikTok and has now diffused into other sectors of society. I literally saw an ad for Carlana, however you pronounce that, in Walmart. To clarify, that means that people cannot afford their groceries, that they are literally putting them on a pay later option. And as we know, the interest rates for these pay later options and credit cards are very predatory, sometimes even reaching to 30%. I can't talk about overconsumption without talking about the environmental impact, especially due to these freaking chain hauls. This article, How Buying Stuff Drives Climate Change by Renee Choi, outlines the effect of our consumer purchases. For example, she goes on to say Americans produce 25% more waste between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. That is a mere 4 months. Further, each person wastes about 100 pounds of food. She goes on to depict the 2015 study that found the production of household goods and services were responsible for 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Americans' yearly carbon emissions are 5 times that of the world's average person. So if you feel like you are caught up in this overconsumption cycle, here are some tips for you. Honestly, if I were you, I would just delete social media, period. You have to break the cycle. I myself am addicted to social media. I literally have to have it off my phone at all time. Not only that, I have to have the gray color scheme on my phone. I know that may sound silly, but at the end of the day, I know myself, I know how I work, and I know what preventative measures I'll have to take to ensure that I can be a functional member of society without being a slave to my phone. I would recommend you do something similar if that means deleting TikTok off your app. I also think you need to be honest with yourself. If you feel like you have a spending problem, sometimes it means cutting up your credit cards. Credit card is not meant for everyone. Some people are just not credit card people. So if that is you, get rid of your credit cards. I also talked about the 48-hour rule on different videos that I posted. This is essentially waiting 48 hours. I personally like to wait a week until I buy something because that way I can better distinguish if I truly actually want it or if it's just being influenced to me. And oftentimes it's just being influenced to me. Like, I can't even tell you the amount of times that it's been that week period and I'm like, I don't even want this anymore. So imagine if I bought it and then I get it 1 week later and I don't even want it. Like, that's insane. And the biggest thing when it comes to breaking any cycle is of course having awareness as to what the actual problem is, because that's how you can better identify your flaws and see how you can improve. Remember, it is not a race, it is a marathon. So if you can only be 1% better on your overconsumption every single day, that will add up in the long scheme. We are going long game, not short game. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe. If you didn't, comment and tell me why. But otherwise, I really appreciate everybody watching to the end of this video. See you in the next one.